Halloween's this weekend. Are you ready for a scary story from the woods of West Virginia? Today we tell the story of the Flatwoods Monster. Hello folks, I'm Steve Gilly, along with Rod Mullins, and this is Stories, a History of Appalachia. Now, before we get started on this scary story, be sure to go down there, below this picture, click that subscribe button, ding the bell to get notified every time we have a new story, and be sure to give us a thumbs up too, please.
Well, Steve, I think we're getting ready to share with some of our YouTube viewers at least an opportunity to learn about this Braxton County monster, or the Flatwoods Monster from West Virginia.
Now, this is a story that we told a couple of years ago on our audio version of the podcast, and we thought it'd be pretty neat to share this with those folks that watch us on YouTube that haven't heard our version of this story as well. A very good story, and we're going to do our best to tell it to you in a way that hopefully you'll find entertaining. Well, the monster, also known as the Braxton County Monster or the Phantom of Flatwoods, was first sighted, naturally enough, in the town of Flatwoods in Braxton County, West Virginia, on September 12, 1952. Now, what was seen was this, and I'm going to quote this information for you. A being that was at least 7 feet tall, with a black body and a dark glowing face. Now, witnesses described the creature's head as elongated, shaped like a sideways diamond, and as having non-human eyes. A large circular cowling appeared behind the head. The creature's body was described as inhumanly shaped and clad in a dark pleated skirt-like exoskeleton, later described as a shadow. Some accounts record that the creature appeared to have no visible arms due to its incredible speed, while others reported long, stringy arms protruding from the front of its body with long, claw-like fingers.
Steve, this sounds like my prom date my senior year in high school. Anyway, with that, some witnesses also reported seeing a large pulsating red ball of light that hovered above or rested on the ground. UFOologists believe that it may have been a powered craft that the entity had piloted. But here's how the story played out. On the evening of September 12, 1952, around 7:15, 3 boys, Edward May and his brother Fred, and their pal Tommy Heyer, were all outside hanging out together when they saw a bright light flash across the sky in front of them. They saw this object, or at least this light, land on the property of a local farmer, G. Bailey Fisher. Now, instead of immediately going over to this thing that had dropped out of the sky, they decided to play it a little bit smart. They went over to Edward and Fred's mom, Kathleen, and told her what they had seen. Kathleen May promptly headed back to the Fisher farm with the boys, 14-year-old Neil Nunley, 10-year-old Ronnie Shaver, and 17-year-old Eugene Lemon, who happened to be at home from the West Virginia National Guard, to see for herself, with the group of boys, what was going on.
Well, accompanying the group was Lemon's dog, which ran ahead and got out of sight. Suddenly, the dog began barking, then ran back to the group with its tail tucked between its legs. Undaunted, Mrs. May and the boys kept going till they reached the top of a hill from where they saw it. It was a large, pulsating ball of fire about 50 feet to their right. They also encountered a pretty powerful mist that made their eyes and noses sting. Then Eugene Lemon noticed 2 lights near the object underneath a tree, so he went on over, shined his flashlight on it, and saw the Flatwoods Monster, which began running not away from them, but towards them. The creature emitted a shrill, hissing noise as it smoothly rushed toward the group. Then it suddenly veered away toward the ball of fire. Well, naturally, at this point, Mom and the boys had pretty much reached the limit of their interest in this whole thing and fled the scene in terror.
You sounded like Chad Everett there, that pulsating ball of light or fire.
I've been practicing that for a while,
It kind of reminded me of something out of the airplane movies, is the way you said, a pulsating ball of light. But that's not important right now. Anyway, When Kathleen May got home, she immediately called the sheriff, Robert Carr, and the co owner of the local newspaper, the Braxton Democrat, and one editor, A. Lee Stewart, to report what she had witnessed. Now, Stewart went out and interviewed the witnesses and then went back to the site with Eugene Lemon, that West Virginia guardsman. The 17-year-old had to show at least some bravery, after all, in going to investigate. Well, there the two found no creature, no ball of fire, nothing visible, but they did find a smell, probably from the burning mist that the group had encountered earlier. Stewart reported that there was a sickening, burnt, metallic odor still prevailing. I've got this Chad Everett thing on my mind now, so now we're going to say it again. There was a sickening, burnt, metallic odor still prevailing there, Steve.
You do well. We could have a
Thank
Chad
you.
Everett off, I guess, if you if you wanted to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyway, soon Sheriff Carr and one of his deputies showed up and searched the area as well, but they found nothing else save that awful smell either. Well, the next day, Lee Stewart came back out to the farm to look some more, and it was then that he found two elongated tracks in the mud, along with traces of a thick black goo. Based on that, and that alone, Stewart reported that there was a possible saucer landing, a real live UFO. Oh, it was later revealed that the tracks were from a 1942 Chevrolet pickup truck driven by a fellow named Max Lockhart, who had gotten wind of the sighting and had gone to the site earlier that morning hunting for the creature before Mr. Smith had arrived the second time. And then, Rod, the fun really started, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, because two UFO investigators came to town to talk to witnesses. And these witnesses started telling some, well, pretty interesting stories. A mother and her 21-year-old daughter claimed to have encountered a creature with the same appearance and odor a week before, prior to the September 12th incident. Now, the encounter reportedly affected the daughter so badly that she was later confined to the Clarksburg Hospital for, get this, 3 weeks. Wow. They also got a statement from the mother of Eugene Lemon. Eugene's mom said that at the approximate time of the crash, her house had been violently shaken and the radio cut out for 45 minutes. And the director of the local board of education claimed to have seen a flying saucer taking off at 6:30 a.m. on September the 13th, the morning after the creature was sighted.
I guess with witnesses like that, you got to believe something happened, right?
Yeah, especially the director of the local board of education. You think there'd have to be some credence in what he was telling.
Yeah. Well, beyond that, the original group, Kathleen Mays and the boys, began to experience some odd symptoms, which went on for a while, and which they blamed on their close encounter with the Flatwoods Monster. They suffered from irritation of the nose, swelling of the throat, vomiting and convulsions, and other similar symptoms. A doctor who treated several of the witnesses described their symptoms as being similar to victims of mustard gas. Oddly enough, Rod, on the night of September the 12th, a meteor had been observed across 3 states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, and had been mistaken for a flaming aircraft and reported as having crashed into the side of a hill at Elk River, 11 miles southwest of the Flatwoods Monster sighting at about the same time. There were also 3 flashing aircraft beacons visible from the Fisher farm as well, all of which have convinced later investigators that the whole thing was a trick of the witnesses' minds, and their symptoms being psychosomatic, or as we all say, it was all in their heads. Add into that the possibility that what Mr. Lemon shined his light on could have been an owl or a possum even, who knows, much like what might have happened in the Mothman case, and you have a case of mass hysteria, don't you, Rod?
Yeah, those West Virginia possums, you got to watch out for them, and especially late in the fall. You got to watch for them. They're all over the place taking scores. Well, local media, they had some alternative explanations, including that they had seen some kind of covert secret government aircraft in its pilot. Well, the popularity of the Flatwoods Monster led the town to hold an annual festival to celebrate it. Now, the 3-day festival included a weekend of live music, the Green Monster Museum, Green Monster being yet another name for the apparition, and trips to the site of the original sighting. The last year the festival took place was back in 2006. And Steve, I really have to say this.
Yes.
I keep on expecting Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Shaggy, as well as Scooby, to just pop out of here any minute and say, "It was the banker, Mr. Gower." And yeah, I'd have been able to get by with this kid if it hadn't been for your meddling. That's what I'm expecting out of this, but it doesn't happen that way.
Well, yeah, I could see that. Well, folks, the monster inspired the Braxton County Board to create a series of oversized chairs in the likeness of the monster placed in Braxton County. The Braxton County Monster Chair Project started in 2014. So there you go.
Wow, a lot of information about that, and this was especially during the craze, and I have to say this, of the 1950s, right after
Yeah.
World War II was over with, and all those crazy B movies came out of Earth Against the Flying Saucers and things like this, and this was probably around the time, I guess, that Day the Earth Stood Still came out. And,
Mm-hmm.
people's minds really wondered during this time. When they saw a light go through the sky, if they couldn't hear it or identify it, then it was a UFO until somebody was able to go and research and find out about it.
Well, the 1950s and also into the 1960s was
Hmm.
pretty much a period of mass hysteria
Right.
for UFOs. And some people believe in them, some people don't. I mean, there have been UFOs reported like this one, the Flatwoods Monster.
Hmm.
Several have been spotted. There was a whole period, and we need to do a story about this, in the early 70s. I want to say 73, maybe 1974, where UFOs were spotted all over East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, and I think Eastern Kentucky,
Hmm.
all in about a 1 or 2 night period. So,
Yeah, we'd also need to remind people too. There were a lot of UFO sightings in the 1980s too around Whitful, and
yeah,
there for a long time there was a lot of suspicion what was going on. Some people thought, well, it's UFOs. Other people thought it's military training missions because right there, as you go over close to Fancy Gap and there into North Carolina, they thought they were basing that out of. But we never did hear, really what was going on. I don't even think that, if I'm not mistaken, the news director at the local radio station asked the congressman at the time, 9th District Congressman Rick Boucher, to do an investigation or find out what that could be coming over Whitful. And I never did hear what came out of that.
yeah. Well, something we can investigate on that as well.
True.
And folks, that's the story of the Flatwoods Monster, another story that makes up the history and the folklore of this place we call home, Appalachia. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to the audio version of the Stories podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Radio Public, or on your own favorite podcast app. You can also subscribe right here on YouTube. Like I said earlier, go down below, click that subscribe button, and you'll be all set up to catch our stories every time we come out with them. We are also on Twitter and Instagram at Story Appalachia, and on Facebook at Stories of Appalachia. Be sure to come over to those places and follow us there. And as always, till next we meet, y'all take care. And happy Halloween. So long, everybody.